Buenos días, mi nombre es Flores Canela Brian del grupo 1310 and today I want to talk about the past simple in English. Past simple is one of the most used interactions to use along with a phrase or a word. Without the past simple, a word or phrase can be misunderstood by the person you are talking with, since they can take it as you're talking about the future, the present, or even the past. So, the past simple use its own rules as well as its own rules for even questions. Since the past simple is mostly used to talk with interactions made in the past. As we can see, the past simple doesn't suffer any kind of change during the word, or even with the pronouns. So we can see in the table, it doesn't suffer any kind of change. So you just put a pronoun as long with the verb in the past simple. So as we can see, I wanted, you wanted, he wanted, she wanted, it wanted, you wanted, and they wanted. To do the past simple in the correct way, there are some kind of rules. You can just put a regular verb with to use with a phrase or a word. So as we can see here, we use words clean or meet. So what do we do to complement this with the phrase or the word? Well, it's simple. When the verb is just regular verb, you just add it. Since we can see, it just cleaned, wanted, and enjoyed. Using this helps to know if you're talking about the past, the future, or the present. Since we're talking about the past simple, it's kind of obvious that we are referring to the past. So we can see here some examples to how to do some verbs with the help of the past. Since we can see cleaned, want, enjoyed, and many more. So here we have more. So not every kind of verb ends in the same way that the last one. So as we can see here, these verbs end with a silent E. So in this case of verbs, what do we do for them in a past? Well, you just add. So not every kind of verb uses the same rule as the last one that we have seen. So we can see here, so if the verb ends with a silent E, what do we do in this case, do I ask? Well, we just add D. If we add D, we can make these verbs into a past form. So we have the examples here: close, die, use, believe, or become. So if any kind of time you need to use these verbs in a past way, you just add a D. So we can see here, close, died, used, believed, and become. But as I'd say the last one, not every kind of verb use or writes at the same way than these two. These two has its own rules, but not every kind. So we can see here, if the verbs ends with a consonant and a G, we just need to change the G to an I and add it. So if any moment of our lives we need to use any kind of verbs as carry, apply, hurry, try, or fly. So the only thing we need to do is as simple as change the G for an I, and then we just add ed. So if any moment we need to use any kind of this, so we just do this and we have this: carried, applied, hurry, try, and filled. So it's not as hard as it sounds. With any kind of practice, you can get this in many kind of seconds. We now have here those verbs that ends with a vowel and an a. So as the last one, not every kind of verb is the same. So these verbs and these are pretty similar between this. So if any moment arises, if any kind of lives we need to use stay, play, buy, say, or pray, the only thing we need to do is just add ed. So we see that if it ends with a vowel and a a, we just simply add ed. If any moment of our lines we need to use stay, pray, buy, say, or pray, it's just as simple as adding the ed. As I say a moment later, these verbs are not the same as these ones. So these are different from this. So if any moment we need to use any kind of verbs that end with a vowel and a j, we just add ed. As we can see here, we can use stayed, played, bought, said, and prayed. We can see that we have many more. So these verbs, if this ends with a consonant plus vowel plus consonant, we just need to double the consonant and add ed. It sounds a bit hard, but with just remembering the verb and the correct way to make it a past, it's not hard anymore. So we can see these examples: plan, stop, admit, commit, refer. So we can see that these verbs actually use the same characteristics as they say here. So if any moment we need to use any kind of verb as described here, we just add the ed before double the consonant. So if we need to use these verbs, we just add the int or the last vowel and add the ed. As you can see, planned, stopped, admit, commit, or referred. It sounds hard, but when you take it from memory, it's actually easy. As we can see, things became a little bit hard here. So if the verb ends in a consonant plus vowel plus consonant, it's as simple. So we just repeat the final consonant, but if the phrase, if it's stressed, we just add ed, just an extra. Otherwise, if it is not stressed, we just pass about double the consonant and just add the ed. So yes, it sounds a bit hard, but it's actually not. We see it's here 3 verbs. These kind of verbs are not mostly used on a normal conversation, but in any case, it's just as simple as checking the right verb and what we do in these cases. So we see prefer, regret, and transfer. So what do we do? If the verb is stressed, we just double the consonant and add ed. Otherwise, we just add the ed. We don't add the another consonant. As you can see, preferred, regret, transferred. Preferred, regret, transferred. We now see here. This is a bit more simple. If the verb ends with an L, it's as simple as double the L and then add ed. So at this moment, we have seen that most of the verbs must have ed. So we can see that that is the most important rule about the past simple. So we just add the double L and add the ed. We can see these verbs. These are pretty more common. So we have trouble, console, detail, control, and call. So what do we do in these cases? It's simple. We just double DL and add the ed. It's a bit similar to the other kind of verbs that we had seen before. So in these verbs, what do we do? Trouble, cancel, detail, control, and call. It's so simple, yes. But not every kind of verb is like this. We now have the irregular verbs. These verbs actually doesn't follow any kind of rule. These are different from the regular verbs. So as we can see, they don't follow any rule. So if they don't follow any rule, what do we do? Simple. We just learn the right way to pronounce them and use it in a word or a phrase. So we see the table with many examples as brave, boy, choose, come, and many more. So we have the verbs in the present way and the verbs in the irregular in past. So here we have break, broke, boy, bought, choose, come, came, do, did. Did is the most important. Run, ran, think, thought, fight, fought, bite, beat, draw, and drew. So it's a bit hard, but actually with any kind of practice you can see this as a simple rule more. So it doesn't become that hard at this time. So one of the most important questions, ironically, is how to do questions. Do questions in the past simple is very important. So at this way we can see, as I said before, do and did is pretty much important in the past simple, since without the did you can actually do a question in the past simple. So we have this table. So did never change. If you are gonna do a question in the past simple, you must start with the did. So any kind of question starts with a did, then goes with a pronoun. So pronoun is basically who are we referring to, who are we talking to, and then goes the verb. You can see here, did you go to England? This is a question in a present, but then how do we do that question in the past way? Did you go to England? You may notice that go didn't change a lot. But why is this? Why go didn't transform to went? Well, as you can see, the only past thing is did. Then goes with the pronouns, the I, you, he, she, it, you, and thee. And then ends with a verb. And any kind of thing that we can use to complement everything. So, with everything we have, did I go? Did you go? Did he go? Did she go? Did it go? Did you go? Did they go? So, with everything of here, we see that we can ask actually these questions with every pronoun. Did I go to England? Did you go to England? Did he go to England? Did she go to England? Did it go to England? Did you go to England? Or did they go to England? So questions in the participle works in a very interesting way, since they doesn't change a lot, and looking at it on a first view, they doesn't suffer any kind of change. So for now, I think that's everything. Not exactly everything, but I think it's the most interesting and useful information we can have. So, from me, I will say that that's everything, kinda everything. At least for now, since principle just more rules than just this. You can actually learn in your way if you want to know how to do the questions in the best way. So it's as simple as just practice them, practice how to talk with them, or even how to write them. Write them is one of the best way for that.